If you play Modern in any capacity beyond the kitchen table right now, you'll be aware of Death Shadow. Death Shadow decks were often referred to as Suicide Zoo decks in the past, as they required you to almost kill yourself in order to enable the now titular Death Shadow as a threat and kill condition. Wizards of the Coast didn't like this light-hearted use of a rather morbid and controversial topic showing up in their coverage, so they renamed it Death Shadow Zoo officially, or simply Grixis Death Shadow, or Jun Death Shadow, or whatever rather dull name described the colour combos that came along with the Death Shadow. I don't necessarily disagree with their decision as a company. All I know is that I will forever continue to call the deck the artist formerly known as Suicide Zoo. I'm Vince, also known as PleasantKenobi on the internet, and I'm the magic content creating equivalent of Michael Jackson's 1982 duet with Paul McCartney. Death Shadow is the very definition of a menace. Certain other strategies are no longer viable because they just don't do what they are doing as efficiently as the artist formerly known as Suicide Zoo does. Message boards are full of discussions around bannings and ways to beat it because, as we all know, Wizards of the Coast love a good fucking banning at the moment. Death Shadow decks are the deck to beat right now, and people are skewing their main boards to beat it, and the meta is warping as a result. But long before he was the format boogeyman, Death Shadow held the proud and earnest position of jank tier 3 combo, the kind some scrubber FNM played and made it particularly embarrassing for you to lose to. Well, in true scrub style, John the Baptist and I are ready to take Death Shadow back to his roots, back to his origins, away from all the decadent costumes and exuberant guitars to focus on what really matters, the rolls, the scar-striped, and the mechanics that only mattered in a limited format 5 years ago. Prepare to scavenge. This is a Baptist Brew in the truest sense of the word. It's kind of like a craft beer full of half-fermented grain and gritty pieces of undissolved pondweed. You don't really like it at first, but after prolonged exposure you realise it's actually pretty tasty. It's the Magic deck equivalent of Stockholm Syndrome. However, I didn't have much of an input in the building of this deck. For this one I locked John the Baptist away in his lab and I bolted the door shut. He emerged a week later, his hands covered in the pulp and blood of World Wake 1-drops and his hair was littered with the feathers of a peacock. Sometime later I learned the unfortunate truth that peacock is nothing to do with this deck. At all. He just fucking killed a peacock. Get wrecked! The deck's plan is to mill itself and play relatively efficient cards from standards gone by. For rolls, the Scar Strike, which is more of an EDH card if we're honest, allows you to scavenge creatures from the graveyard, putting their power onto your creatures permanently that are in play. This spice becomes particularly hot when we graft these counters onto trampling trolls and bipedal siege machines. Walking Ballista is, as always, an absolute fucking house in this deck. Death Shadow is part of the real combo at the core of this attrition-based strategy. His power is always 13 in the graveyard because it doesn't check any state-based effects in the card's text. So when scavenged, he's a 1 mana +13/+13 pump forever. Add that to the counter-firing machine gun that is the Ballista Bastard, and you have what the ancient Egyptians once called number wang. Before we begin, please note that there are two differing lists in this video. John's jankier satyr Wayfinder and clunky mana base versus the less budget but smoother mana and Grim Flares in place of the Wayfinders. The land count is kept super low to maximise the impact of Grizzly Salvage and Co, so the Wayfinders whiff almost all the time. I'll also further add the improvements like the Grim Flares and the extra mana were all, bits of my own creation. Sometimes you just need a pinch of salt to make a brew palatable. Anyway, enough cock-wiggling and waffling, let's fucking do this. I keep what I first think is a perfectly fine hand, but later realise that this land here comes into play tapped, which is terrible with a mana dork. That's the first point of the series and we aren't even out of turn 1 yet. We find out our opponent is a fan of my previous videos, explicitly stating that his love for mono red Tron. He then plays an Urza's power plant and I gasp and my palms get all sweaty. No, it can't be! Is this mono red Tron? No, this guy might enjoy our videos on a unique blend of deck building, but he plays the less manly and far more lame and tame traditional green variant of Tron. We miss a land drop, make an elf, miss a land drop, make a Wayfinder, and whiff on finding a land. It's practically over already. A series of Sylvan Scryings, assemble Tron on turn 4, and we get to say hello to Eugene the Spirit Dragon. Did you know that Eugene is a Spirit Dragon because he believes in the spiritual healing powers of crystals and the ability to summon energy from within your own aura and chakra? True story. He uses his aura to shit on us from a great height. A down tick wipes out our unimpressive board state, like wiping the foaming mouth of a freshly fed but still completely incompetent baby. We finally draw another land, making a Walking Ballista for 1 to send a message that we will not be intimidated. Hippie Eugene simply bolts our Ballista and we concede to game 2. GG Eugene. We bring in some Python needles and prepare our innocence for another terrible game. We We have an opening hand of things, we keep said things, and we lead with a dork, he goes map. We lead into another dork and a 1-1 walking machine gun bastard. He does nothing, intending to map as expected. Our Grizzly Salvage finds a Death Shadow for the bin, but no rolls for the kill. We take a Wayfarer for another body, and cast it finding an overgrown tomb and binning another ballista. We attack for 1 damage, he maps for a mountain and untaps and casts Pyroclasm. We ping him with ballista and watch our board decimated. He Ancient Stirrings for a mine, we untap and draw for rolls, we scavenge a Death Shadow onto it, and make a formidable beast. Our opponent exclaims in respect to the combo in the chat, and concedes to gain 3. We keep our best hand yet with this gnarly little grim motherfucker. His art is so cool that I think he's the best troll in Magic. I used to play him alongside Grizzly Salvage and Elvish Mystic and Junk Reanimator in Standard, reanimating Craterhoof Behemoths and that big fucking angel. The deck was sweet. He stirrings to find a power plant and we make a bird. He stirs again to find a mine and plays a map to ensure he can complete Tron on turn 5. We play a lot with the troll out and cast Grizzly Salvage and find over rolls and get very excited. We pop out a ballista on 1, his map grabs a tower and he gets to untap and assemble Tron. This is 5p territory, kids. We were okay with an Eugene or a Khan here for the most part. Even Oblivion Stone would leave us with a turn to kill him, and it would also allow us to recover it afterwards. But then he plays Perilous Vol, which is weird, but we get another turn, so it's not so bad that we weren't expecting it. And then after that, he follows up with a Relic of Progenitus, which basically kills our combo dead. It looks like we fold easily to splashable hate backed up by disgusting levels of fast mana. Yay. We untap and we cast Vorolzi and pray to the gods that he messes up the line here and chooses not to exile whilst Vorolzi is on the stack. Unfortunately, our opponent sees the line and cracks the relic. Boom goes the Dynamite and we're left sucking eggs. We sacrifice our own troll after combat to be able to scavenge and load up the Machine Gun Bastard and look to fire off on activation of his Vault and pray that we draw a gas. He activates, we shoot him, and then we draw a useless Wayfinder and get Nulamogged. Fuck. So we move on to round 2, and John the Baptist knew that I was queuing in practice rooms and decided to sneakily try and queue at the same time. Lo and behold, we are paired the sneaky bastard. We keep an okay hand with no turn 1 play. John plays a Blood Crypt and I immediately know what he's playing. His fucking Torment of Hailfire Tron list he's been playing this week. God bless this man and his commitment to complete and utter trash pile wanky jank. We play a Constrictor and watch as John begins to loop through his deck slowly with his rather aptly named Cathartic Reunion. After getting destroyed by a Wheeltron deck last round, it's cathartic to play against a similar level of shit Barutron. We play a troll and get in for our first couple of points of damage. John plays another Reunion, leaving us to Grizzly Salvage and see quite possibly the worst split imaginable. To quote a famous NASA spokesman when speaking to the BBC,
"This is the one thing we didn't want to happen."
You see, Claim gets neither of these creatures back with any positive outcomes, and without the Grizzly finding a Death Shadow, Varolz is pretty damn bad here. This is also 3 out of 4 copies of Varolz, so in short, putting in the bin is also bad for the combo. Fuck my actual life. We take this bastard and we deploy it for 2 off of 2 mana thanks to the Counter Snake. However, John places Sadness onto the stack and it's allowed to resolve once the ballista is fired off at John's face. We still get to keep the snake though, right? No. Deeper, Darker Sorrow is John's follow-up. Onto the stack it goes and it resolves. He really is a cunt. We make a troll and claim a snake back with claim. Black Sun Zenith for 2 clears our board again because the snake adding an additional counter kills itself, which is pretty frustrating if a little bit ironic. We draw lands and then a bird after John plays a Chandra or the Firebrand, which would kill the bird. We don't play it and we pass to him and we know what's coming. He ticks her down to double his next spell and casts a Torment of Hellfire.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again, because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping, and the vision...
Okay, our first 3 hands do almost nothing, so we mulligan down to 4. YOLO. We play a tapped land on our Malta 4 and we pass, and we have no confidence that this game is going anywhere. He plays a map and we play a dork. He maps for more Tron lands, plays a load of spheres and plays another map. We Wayfinder with the hope of finding a green source to play our bird, and of course we find just a swamp instead, because Magic the Gathering hates us. I play a Walking Machine Gun Bastard for 1 and start getting into the red zone with everything I can. John durdles as hard as he can and casts more cantripping artifacts, and I continue to beat down with a shitty 1/1 elves and a growing bastard, finally firing off the machine gun on his face for the final points of damage. Pew 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 pew! Taste this, you shit! Who will Chromanticore bless on this day? Who is piloting the most blessed garbage fire of jankiness amongst us? I'm gonna go a slow 7 because Woodland Cemetery shouldn't be in this fucking deck. We'll fix that before our 1v1 queues. My 6 is as reasonable as a deck like this could offer. A turn 1 relic from the Baptist is pretty maddening though. Fuck off, John. We Wayfarer and whiff because of course we do. A Rolls hits the bin, which is pretty upsetting as well. We play a Troll and John sets up a Troll on turn 4 through the use of main phase maps. We untap and make a Ballista on 1, attack as hard as we can, discarding both shadows and even a bird to the lot of the Troll to put the clock on John. A Lightning Bolt with the end step kills our bastard, which we sack to pew John in the face. He exiles our yard on his turn looking for some form of big mana payoff and just plays another relic instead and passes. We smash him to 4 and play a Ballista bastard on 1, which then gets pushed. We ping him down to 3, he checks his next draw and concedes. The Battle of the Jank concludes with Vince and his Trolls winning. GG, fuck off, John! We keep a 1-lander, double dork, double hanger back, and find ourselves against everybody's favourite artifact-based aggro deck, Affinity. He vomits out his hand and we get to make another dork off the freshly added fetch land, remembering that this is the tuned list now, so we have better mana. We deploy a 2-mana hanger back, which ETBs is a 1-1 of course. He slams playing to play and offers the trade of his Memnite against my hanger back. I do think long and hard about this trade, but decide to go for it, because blocking here reduces his artifact count and still leaves me with a flying blocker to chump the cranial plating on an Ornithopter. I untap and draw Rolls, the Troll in striped pyjamas, and I decided a bigger hangerback would be better than other Rolls here with an empty bin. We really want to set up a Scavenger onto the hangerback, which we can then pop and make an army of 1/1s he probably can't deal with. We take the first cranial plate to the face, not wanting to lose my only blocker just yet, and then he drops a Signal Pest. Have you guys actually looked at the art of Signal Pest close up? It's not actually a chicken-shaped creature. What many think is the beak is actually just its claw and its head's a lot smaller. True story. See? My channel can be educational as well as sexually arousing. We play yet another dork and decide still not to play over Rolls Royce because we want to keep up mana to tick our hangerback up. We block both Thopters with birds and tick up the Walker. He plays the renowned Affinity staple of Atog? Wow, this feels like modern standard, boys and girls. What's next, Skullclap? We play out our Rolls the Scavenger and claim our bird back to maximise bodies and mana. He decides to pop our hanger back in instead with the Galvanic Blast, so we pump him in response and end up with a shed load of Thopter tokens. There is a big swing here from our opponent. Rolls blocks the Atog as he can then be regenerated, and I consider blocking the kill in the Ornithopter with 2 Copters, but decided not to and run the risk of another Galvanic Blast to my face. I remember this being a conscious decision and took a little bit of time for me to decide on. I look back and I think it was totally wrong, to be honest. What are your thoughts here? If you drop a comment below and let me know. Is keeping some aerial blockers and attackers worth going into Galvanic range here? I'm not sure. I sack a tapped 1/1 Thopter to regen for Rolls and he sacks the Pest to pump and save the Atog. I draw yet another dork. Fun. He plays an Overseer, which we will push regardless of the lack of artifact creatures. We only have so many flying blockers and a pumped Ornithopter will be hard for us to group block down. He swings and this time we do double block it down. He plays another Atog and we push the Overseer down a novelty sized hole. There was more back and forth as he grouped down his another Ornithopter and block chumped the Atogs. He sacks artifacts to keep his alive against our regenerating Rolls. We eventually draw another Galvanic Blast and kills me. We could have perhaps been slightly more aggressive against some of the flyers and I could have perhaps blocked better as well to stay out of Galvanic range, but ultimately we drew very little gas outside of our opener, so I can't be too mad at how I played. We then have an alright looking hand of mid-range action, just missing a dork. His hand is significantly less explosive than before. We then play everybody's favourite huntsman, Grim Slayer. He plays more spice in the form of perhaps for budget reasons an Underground River and gets in with that life-linking dickhead. He then plays a plating, hashtag 5p territory. We get in with Grim Slayer intending to push one of the Memnites if he double blocks to ruin it and still get a trigger whilst decreasing his artifact count. No blocks however. We Grizzly Salvage before blocks to try and enable Delirium but we fail. We find Rolls and trigger allows us to find a Walking Bastard which we can put onto our deck but forget that we have a fetch land in play which will shuffle it away. Herp-a-derp. He suits up the Flying Scourge and we happily push that out of the sky before damage. However, it does mean that we don't get the Bastard which would have been super sweet against his many X1s. Grim Slayer gets into the red zone once again and we find a Death Shadow to ditch and keep our land on top of to maximise mana. We don't deploy Big V this turn as a bird allows us to keep up a push and play and scavenge next turn for the win. We pass back and he misses yet another land drop and plays and no mana boosting artifacts at all. He is getting really stuck here. He activates Inkmoth and I take the opportunity to blow up his land like the true Death and Taxes player that I am with our second copy of Fatal Push. We untap, drop the Varolz and get ready for some fun. You see, Varolz Z is the darkest MC in all of Ravnica fam. I ain't saying he a gravedigger, but he certainly is making Grim Flayers bigger. Our opponent takes one look at our big, massive Grim one and concedes. So game 3 we keep a reasonable mid-range hand with a dork, he plays an average paste affinity hand and we stick an elf. He plays and equips a plating like fucking clockwork for this guy, he always seems to have it and we get twatted. We play a slayer and leave mana up for deadly shove. He plays another bit of spice in the form of dread sanctuary and then plays an edge champion. The funny thing is our deck lines up quite well against plating and edge champion draws, because not only do we have 2 natural safe from the board and a Vex safe to deal with that plating, we have both Walking Bastard and Hagerback as well as those Thopter tokens to block it. Walking Ballista can also gun down his entire swaths of X1s and X2s by given half the chance. However, as this game transpires, we fail to really capitalise on this or draw any of that stuff. We deploy threats like a Death Shadow, alive on the field and a lot with Troll, but we eventually die to champion because we never draw any of our 9 outs or any of the ways in which we could sort of dig to find them. Round 4 we keep a 1 land hand, and even if they were to bolt the bird, we can possibly play it back and get there. He leads Arbor Elves suggesting either Elves or Ponza. We Grizzly hoping at worst case to find a Dork, and at best case find Rolls and a Death Shadow. Ding, 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 that is number one. We use Claim to bring back the Milled Mystic and set ourselves up for a jolly good time on turn 3. He plays a Utopia Spore, so now I have him pegged as Red Green Ponza or possibly a bad devotion list, but when he plays an Arch Druid I'm now super confused. This appears to be some sort of big mana elves list. Instead of just going for it with a Rollsy baby, I decided to land a Flare and a Snack, ready to have a better turn swinging thanks to the trampling. Our opponent untaps and we enter 5p territory again as he proceeds to draw cards, make elves, and resolve a fucking Dwyvern Guiltleaf motherfucker. What? This actually makes the ability for me to present an adequate clock against him to race almost impossible thanks to the second line of text if he decided to go for a flunge. I draw a Ballista, which is pretty good here, and get super excited. I resolve rolls and just have to clench and pray that I get to untap and stick the Ballista next turn. And then the worst thing happens. He plays Nykthos and makes quite literally 1 million mana and casts Lead the fucking Stampede.
Run! It's a stampede! It's a game!
It's almost certain we're dead here if he finds an Azuri, but luckily for us, this is the worst Stampede ever, consisting of 1 solitary Elvish Mystic. It's less a Stampede and more of a shit party that no one came to. Unlucky, mate. However, this whiff is super lucky for us. We need to just ensure we survive this attack and wrath this board next turn with a big old fucking Ballista. Flare eats a Visionary in combat and we go to 6. We survive through our opponent's suboptimal lines because he could have swung for more damage here. We untap and make a Walking Machine Gun Bastard and Scavenge.dec onto him. Mechanized Death is online. 16 counters thanks to Sneck. Our opponent loves the combo too, and we go to Machine Gun the shit out of his board, taking down Lords first and later going to kill 1/1s, but he ruins all of our fun by conceding to the first activation targeting his big old elf mama. We mull to 5 in order to find something keepable. This deck is fucking awful at mulligans and Magic seems to hate me. He leads Llanowar Elf and we lead Bird. He plays an Imperious Perfect, showing us that he just doesn't give a shit about conventional builds and all bets are off what cards he's playing. We play Snack and Mystic and he plays a Mystic of his own and another Perfect, making his elves alarmingly big. He fears the group block though and doesn't swing with his Perfect into our team. We play a Bastard for 2, netting 3 counters because of Snake. Next turn we uptick to get 5 total and kill a Lord if all goes to plan. The more Lords we kill, the more effective the Siege Bastard becomes. Then he plays an Azuri which ruins all our plans. Azuri must die. We take a chunk as he now has mana to regen his creatures and will swing wildly into us. We charge up Super Saiyan Bastard and gun down Azuri where he stands. Azuri can't regen himself. Our opponent taps out for Genesis Wave. Wait, no, seriously, he casts Genesis Wave for 4 and hits a load of nonsense like 1/1s. However, those 1/1s are pretty fucking big because of the perfects. However, our opponent misclicks and doesn't cast any of them. PleasantKenobi is my name and winning through nothing but skill is definitely my game. He sees the funny side of it as well, which is cool. We Grizzly and grab our rolls and we let a little bit of damage through as he main phase makes warriors off his perfects. We untap and play a Death Shadow that immediately dies due to state-based effects on our life total being too high, and then we scavenge it onto Walking Ballista. We then scavenge a Snack too, and before you can say activate Verol's regen by sacrificing an Elvis Mystic and then scavenging that onto the Walking Ballista to then activate it 20 times targeting your face, he concedes. Well played, sir. Except for the Genesis Wave, that was awful. You should have really just, yeah, you should have cast those Yeah, that was bad. Ultimately, I got unlucky against Affinity and criminally lucky against Elves. The deck is a good laugh to play and a fun way to build with cards that are currently dominating the metagame. With some tuning, I feel the deck could be actually relatively strong, but it is a bit of a glass cannon in some senses that it folds so badly to hate. It may require some form of transformational sideboarding into bigger mid-range threats perhaps. What do you guys think? Any suggestions for the deck? Does the community want to see us tune this and get it to an actual league once tweaked? As always, any ideas, thoughts, or the overwhelming urge to tell John just to fuck off, then post it in the comments below. Don't forget to like, and if you haven't subscribed, make sure you've subscribed. Hit the bell for emails telling you when I upload new stuff. Don't forget to like the Facebook and Twitter pages in order to be able to chat shit and get banged with me. And if you really like the video and what I'm trying to do here, then by all means you can help out by supporting me through my Patreon. There is no obligation to do so, as I will continue to make content regardless of what people support me with. But with some income, I can look to produce more quality content over time. The link for that's on the screen now. Until next time, and remember, Aristotle once said there is no great meanness without a touch of dankness. And that does beg the question, how many fidget spinners do you reckon Aristotle owned, the old prick? I wonder if the Greeks invented them. They invented a lot of stuff, didn't they? I think they invented the crest sandwich.